first time, I don't remember what the very first topic was, but I know he's spoken on growing food in small places, so even people in communities where there's a lot of regulations, he's given us some ideas of how you can get away with growing at least some food. And microgreens and sprouting. He's also spoken on how to, what to do when the grid goes down. Very fascinating and important information. And now we've got him tonight on this special topic. So, hoping you find great sources locally for your foods and more questions to ask. So, Carrie,
Cool.
You're on.
Thanks, Megan. I'm going to sit and chill if you guys don't mind, because I have had a long day. I've been making good use of the sunshine. I spent, what was it, the middle of January there when that snow and everything came through, thinking that I had clinical depression or something, and then the instant that the sun came out, I felt completely normal. So that's a real thing, right? So, like Diane said, I'm a Knoxville local, fourth generation here in Knox County. We live on, my wife and I and the rest of the family, mom and dad, my brother and his family, live on family land that's been in the family since the 1930s. And it is my mission here now in my early 40s to steward the land that is a part of my inheritance, leave it better than I found it, and most, without a doubt, share it with people. Use it. We use it as a demonstration site for regenerative techniques. We use it to teach and to show, to bring other talent and have them have the opportunity to share their skill sets. And so, if you're on Middlebrook Pike and you go down to just a couple miles west of Cedar Bluff, you see the Food City on your right. Go across, look up the hill, and that's our farm up there. On that hill, kind of hidden away in what is now largely suburbia, but we're still there and we're not going anywhere. And we raise some sheep. We do a small rabbit operation, a few laying hens, but the Katahdin hair sheep are our main protein source on the land that we rotationally graze. And we've been at that. I have been at that 3 years now for the sheep, and we've been back on the family farm for 6 years. My wife and I spent 14 years in the city. I was into urban homesteading and all that kind of stuff. And by the summer of 2020, I was tired of being in the city and talked to mom and dad, and so let's come back out to the farm. And so we do regular gatherings, tours, all kinds of classes and all that kind of stuff. All that is up on my website, strongrootsresources.com. So if you guys would like to join us at any time, you can hop on the mailing list today if you want to. If you want to stay in touch with me, I can show you all about what we're doing out there in a very, very convenient location, as it were. So what I wanted to bring to you guys tonight, I'm gonna help you figure out how to find locally produced foods, so whether it's vegetables, eggs, meat products, anything of the caloric background. I'm going to get into that a little bit, and I've got plenty of ways to help you find those people, and that's, fortunately, these days not very hard to do. It's a lot easier than it used to be, right, Marcy? Like, well-run small family farms are absolutely exploding in our region. But what I really want to help you guys with is how to make a little bit of sense of a lot of the terminology and how to have a conversation with these local producers, so that when you go into having a conversation, if it's at a farm, if it's at an event, if it's at a farmer's market or something of the sort, that you've got kind of some groundwork, because there's a lot of terminology that gets thrown out these days. There's a lot of catchphrases and feel-good marketing, and as it happens with anything, you have small groups of people in various places doing good work on the land, taking care of the land and taking care of the animals. And big agriculture, conventional agriculture, sees that as a marketing opportunity to sell essentially the same conventional product that they have always sold under different labeling, and worse, make you pay more for it, even though it may not be of any better quality. So, hopefully most of you guys got the handout. At one point, about halfway through my presentation, we're going to start hitting these questions. And that's where I'll kind of open up for a little more audience feedback and that sort of thing.
Is there more of them somewhere?
Share, I think I brought 20-ish copies, so if you can share with somebody, and then I'm happy to email you one later on. So, farm to table, this is like this catch-all phrase these days. Farm to table makes you feel real good, makes you think about you're sitting down at a restaurant as part of a little farm, and everything you're eating on that plate was raised a few hundred feet away. And there are places that actually do that. Blue Stem Hollow in Greenback is a wonderful example of actual farm to table meals, but it is a generic term, and so it doesn't necessarily mean what they want you to think it means. There are, if you're at the grocery store and you're looking, if you're in the organic section or really any of the sections anymore, you'll see labels like with eggs, cage free. You may see it labeled free range. This may or may not mean much of anything depending upon how regulatory authorities have defined all this stuff and whether or not these farmers are participating in these kind of checks and balances type of regulatory situations. So in some of my digging around on this, cage-free eggs could just mean that they've decided that a cage is this big, but a cage that's 2 feet wider is not a cage anymore. It's not a cage, so they're cage-free. See what I'm saying on this? There's a lot of trickery, and I'm not going to go like hard, real hardcore on this particular aspect, but I want you guys to be aware. Surprise, labels lie. And I'm in many years ago, my wife and I decided to get serious about our diet and try to address some health issues she and I were both having. We really took a deep dive on labels and things, and man, I just got madder and madder and madder. And then I kind of realized it was making my blood pressure go up, and that wasn't good either. So, so there are examples of this stuff not being all that accurate. You will hear free range, and that can just mean that the chickens are not in any cage of any size, but they are in this massive building on the ground, walking all around in their own fecal matter, walking over top of dead chickens, pecking and eating other dead chickens. It's horrifying. It's truly horrifying. But depending upon what kind of regulatory messing around is going on, that can very well be the case. So this is why when you find your local farmers, you want to have these conversations. This is more important than labels. The conversation is going to be way more important than what is written on that box. So in my mind, when we're talking about, especially like regenerative, sustainable, these kind of labeling, these terms mean to me that the animals are being raised in a manner that allows them to live their lives aligned with how nature created them in the first place. So that means cows and sheep are outside on pasture. They're sampling kind of this salad bar of all kinds of different forages that the land makes available to them. They're resting in the shade. They're ruminating. They're moving to fresh ground on a pretty regular basis. With chickens, you'll see vegetarian fed labeling on chickens. Whether that's usually that's for like when you're buying their eggs. Chickens are not vegetarians, not by a long shot. I've seen chickens catch lizards and mice, and what if they can catch it, they'll eat it. They are incredible little hunters. So that's kind of, so in an incredibly controlled situation, yes, you can force a chicken to be vegetarian so that the vegetarians can have eggs and still feel good about having vegetarian chickens, but you are literally not rolling with what the chicken is naturally designed to do. So that's, when I think about all these concepts, I ask myself, how can I support this animal so it gets to express, like Joel Salatin calls it the pigness of pigs. How can I let that animal express its natural, its baseline settings, basically, in an environment that yet, obviously, I still get a yield off of it. But the animal is cared for, its needs are being met, but we're as close to what nature designed. That is always my goal with this. And the vast majority of farmers who are taking on the terms, regenerative or similar terminology, that's what they're going for too, as much as possible. So I want to I don't want this to be like, I don't want you guys like I'm like beating you over the head with this terminology and stuff. I don't want to try to instill shame for shopping at conventional grocery stores. We still get some of our stuff from a regular grocery store, but we do hear so much about what's bad in conventional agriculture. So I'm giving you guys some tools here to access options outside of that conventional production system. The vast majority of regenerative farmers are deeply passionate about what they're doing. They want to talk to you about it. Marcy and I will talk your ears off about what we're doing, about ways we've found to do it better, things that we have learned. This should be a continuously educating scenario. We're always looking for new ways that are supportive of the health of the animals and the greater ecosystem. We're definitely leaning into, we're leaving the land better than we found it. But since this kind of parlance of sustainable and regenerative it's become such a common thing, it has been co-opted. So that's why that conversation is really critical, because we cannot rely on regulatory structures at the USDA level or others, because it's just like anything, when there's enough money being thrown around, you can call it whatever you want to call it. So a few quick notes here. Small farm does not automatically equal good farm, and big farm does not automatically equal like bad farm or a conventional farm. Everything's a matter of scale. Lick Skillet Farm out in New Market in Jefferson County, they're over like 1,000 acres. Huge operation. They have a man who is dedicated solely to the cattle herd. They have people that are dedicated to each, animal enterprise within, but it is a regenerative farm. And Alex Miller and his family can take you through exactly how they transitioned from conventional to a regenerative farm. And if you go to their website, I think it's about our values is the tab on there. They lay out very clearly what they do and do not do and why. If that's like vaccines, if that's antibiotics, how the animals are treated, all that kind of stuff. So transparency is the gold standard here. People who are willing to have a conversation. Your red flags during these conversations are, they're just canned talking points. If you feel like you're just being given kind of rapid fire clipped answers versus somebody being ready to hold a conversation, this is kind of your, that's kind of your indicator for where that conversation may lead. There are a ton of certifications out there. There's animal welfare certifications, there's organic, there's all, the whole thing about grass-fed, grass-finished, there's all this stuff out here. Most of your small local farmers are not going to be into those. They may not, you have to pay to participate in a lot of this stuff. And you have to, you have to potentially sign off a lot of your autonomy on your farm, where other regulatory authorities, whether it's like an NGO or anything of the sort, where they can come in at any time and inspect. And most farmers take their privacy very seriously, so they're probably not going to be very agreeable to that. I know I would not be. I would not want somebody just showing up, like I'm real big on Fourth Amendment rights. I'm not real big on somebody just showing up and passing judgment on a situation without me having some kind of communication and conversation with them. So it's for people who go after these certifications, it doesn't mean that they're doing anything bad or hiding anything. It can be worth it. Most people need to scale to a certain point for it to make sense financially. It can be, you're basically, the last thing a farmer wants to deal with is bureaucracy. And you are tying yourself in with a bureaucracy with a lot of that stuff. So, like I said, there's any number of those. There are farms that will have a big placard up and they'll have all the badges up about the different programs they're involved in. And that's fine. And to me, it still generally is a green flag, because it probably means that they are at least trying to get, to improve their practices and be able to show how those practices are an improvement over conventional. So we will almost ready to hit these questions. But how to find real farms, kind of quick here. And then the backside of the printed sheet you guys have has a ton of resources for actually locating farms, and has a short list. It is not an exclusive list, but a short list of farms that I'm either affiliated with, I have helped with, I have purchased from, I have consulted with, any of those things. So these are like people that I know. I've been on their land. They've often been on mine, and we know each other. Farmers markets, there is no shortage. There is almost a farmers market every day of the week through the spring, summer, and fall. I mean, there's farmers markets everywhere around Knox County, surrounding counties. Many of the markets, like the market director, they have rules. So they work really hard to keep somebody from buying, for instance, produce, a bulk buy of whatever conventionally grown produce and bringing it to the farmer's market and selling it up and passing it off as locally grown produce when it actually came from, a Food City distributor or something like that. So, most markets have at least some level of checks and balances. Some have more regulation than others. But everything on their website is always super clear, and your market director should be willing to answer any questions that you may have about that. Most of us these days, farms, we're trying to have websites or at least some kind of social media presence, even if the best we can do is occasional photos, a quick post, a quick blog post, and a way to reach us. CSAs, that's community supported agriculture. That's, you're kind of like buying a share. So this is especially common with vegetable production. So you purchase a share early in the season. That gives that farmer some seed money to get production going, and then you receive a weekly, bi-weekly, however it's set up, share of produce. You go pick up your box. Sometimes it's delivered, or they have like meeting spots or meeting drops. So plenty of CSAs out there. There's buying clubs, which is what Knox Farms to Families is, and I'll make sure Marcy has time to tell you guys about that. And the Weston A. Price Foundation keeps a pretty updated list as well for, and they have high standards. So I would definitely lean towards them if you're trying to go for the cleanest, the best raised, especially meat and protein products that are out there. Word of mouth is still great. I've found a number of farms just through word of mouth. Roadside signage, we're still depending upon that. So no shortage of ways to get a hold of these products. And then finally, and you can get this in a PDF, but this is the East Tennessee Local Food Guide. Earth Fare has this. Three Rivers Market on Central Street has this. This is pretty common, and like I said, you can get it printed off online. And mine's 2 years old, but this is published every year, and it is. It covers every county in East Tennessee. And I don't think farmers have to pay anything to be listed in this. I think you just have to send in your information. So this is kind of a open source way of getting a hold of that information. So this is called East Tennessee Local Food Guide.
Thank you.
Yep. So let's say you have decided to head down to the farmer's market and talk face-to-face with a producer of some sort. Now, sometimes the people who are selling the products at farmers markets may not be the actual farmer, because he or she, like me, are usually introverts, and we just want to be on our farm and we don't want to go out. Don't want to go out. But sometimes they're like Marcy, and they'll talk your ear off, and they'll tell you everything you ever wanted to know. So thank goodness for the extroverts. But if you have gone down to the farmer's market, or if you've gone to an open house day at a farm and you want to start this conversation, this is kind of the framework that I came up with. If a farmer, if one of the first things they're talking about are their soil and growing, like ground cover, actual soil care practices, the average consumer, this does not even enter their mind. And that's okay. We've been pushed far away from this. Taking care of the soil is everything. If we do not have topsoil, we're all dead, period. People talk about worrying about the, the bees and the pollinators and everything. Also very important, but we gotta have soil. The United States' greatest export is topsoil into the Mississippi River and ultimately into the Gulf of Mexico, where we have a giant dead zone from too much silt, basically too much nutrient winding up in the water where it is not designed to be, versus being locked into the soil. So all regenerative farming, if nothing else, all regenerative farming should be based around not just the preservation of your soils, but the improvement and building more of it. So they should know something about their soil practices, whether that's rotational grazing, if it's cover cropping, if it's different kinds of mulching techniques and so forth, depending upon if we're talking about pastured animals versus market gardening. That should be a big part of their work. So ask about that. You can ask them, how do you build and maintain soil health? That can be, they might want to bring up composting, rotational grazing, seeding cover crop. That should be something beyond just saying, oh, we don't spray pesticides or herbicides. Like, that's, to me, that doesn't mean much anymore. I want to know a few more details.
And your nitrogen mixers that you teach about.
Yes, like, do you have like a kind of progressive soil maintenance plan where you recognize that this site has very poor soil, it doesn't have much organic matter, there's not much growing there. The only things that do grow there are just trying their hardest just to actually anchor the soil to the ground. How are you addressing that? And then to kind of follow up with that, you can ask them, if they use any synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, or pesticides, and if they do, when and why. Because this is one of those things where I'm not going to just write somebody off because they've used, for instance, I'll use myself as an example. I am incredibly allergic to poison ivy, and it is all throughout various woodlines on my property. I did decide to use a specific herbicide that targets poison ivy. It does not contain glyphosate, but I use it only under very specific conditions when it's not going to rain. We're not going to have overspray from high winds. I'll wait till everything is calm, and I target like directly on the leaf, like when the poison ivy is in leaf and I can see it, and I target it directly. And this is one of those things where a little bit of use, it goes to the roots, it kills the plant, it doesn't harm the other things that are in the soil, and I am no longer miserable for the vast majority of the summer. They should be willing to, to share some particulars about that sort of thing. And there are better or like organically certified products. There's a whole thing about all that, but they should be willing to have that conversation. Animal welfare and how they are fed. They should be able to talk to you about what these animals eat for most of their lives, especially if they are pastured, meaning they're outside on the ground much of the year, versus being confined into a building that requires ventilation and all kinds of mechanical systems to keep things from going sideways. How much grain do they use? A lot of ruminants are not really designed to eat tons of grain. A lot of people, this is very, very common. Grain is what feeds most conventionally raised cattle. But in my system, our grain use is very, very minimal. And it's really only to acclimate the sheep to a bucket of sweet feed so that they will follow me where I need them to go. So it would be the equivalent of like a handful of feed per animal, every time we move, which is, every couple of days on average, and not quite so fast in the wintertime. It's good to know how much access those animals have to the pasture or the outdoors, but there's little caveats in here. Many regenerative lamb producers, I don't know so much about cattle, but I know a lot of lamb producers, especially ones in really cold climates, they lamb in barns. They call it a jug. They want the mama and those babies in their own little kind of section of this barn, so that they can be sure who belongs to who, that there's good bonding going on, that they're gaining weight, they're not hypothermic and all that kind of stuff. And that is not a confinement situation. That is a normal, kind of caretaking, preventative reality that if I had a barn, I would do. Because, man, it's something when they're just dropping lambs all over the pasture in January in a snowstorm. So one day. But and if they are in a barn, this is also good to know. If they are kept in the barn for particular reasons, they should be in some kind of deep bedding situation. So deep bedding, or what some people call deep litter, is you are using clean carbon. So that is hay, that is straw, sometimes it's wood chips, sometimes it's whatever you can get a hold of in terms of carbon. And you're putting that on the ground. That's what the animals are laying in. So as they defecate, you just cover up more of it. There's a lot of ways a lot of people raise pigs this way. My friend Blake Reimer down at Tennessee Mountain Farm near Chattanooga, he has converted these they're old chicken houses. So this would have been like a conventional chicken operation. That's no longer going on. And he built these big crib looking things for his pigs. And he set up this layered composting system that the pigs sit on top of, because pigs want to root. This particular breed of pig he's running, they want to root. And so they're on this layer of, there's like logs in the bottom, there's some charred wood, which is, I won't get into biochar, but it's a cool little technique, and then wood chips and straw on top. And it's really, really deep. So he starts it shallow, and then as pigs defecate and everything, and pigs are actually very clean. They will tend to defecate in one location. He just brings in his front end loader tractor and just dumps in more wood chips and covers everything up. So I was in this barn with him 2 summers ago, August, hot as could be. It didn't stink. It did not stink at all. It did not smell like manure. Didn't smell gross. Didn't smell like sewage. And then ultimately, yes, he's growing out pigs, and he's also creating this incredible, biologically dynamic compost all at one time. So I want to make sure people know, just because that animal is inside the building, it doesn't mean that is a bad situation. You just need to know more details about how that animal is being kept. In a lot of areas, people have a lot of predator pressure. And so a lot of people will choose to keep the animals in a barn more, and maybe only turn them out in the daytime when it's a little bit safer, and then at nighttime everybody goes back in the barn. So that is very common. Inputs, interventions. Farmers should be willing to talk to you about how they handle illness or pests or parasites or anything like that when that happens. And that can include, do they do what they call subtherapeutic antibiotics? And that's when you're just given antibiotics hoping that you prevent any bacterial illness in the animal, even if they're not showing any symptoms. That's what conventional ag does. That's one of the reasons why we've got so much danged antibiotic resistance. So somebody who's trying to do things in a way that is smart and as minimal as possible in terms of intervention, they're only treating when they see that like the animal is suffering, when they see like a very isolated issue, like maybe a wound, and it's like, hey, if I just treat this wound, this animal's going to be fine. Same with hormones, whether they be given some kind of growth hormone or not. These are things that you can ask about, and a forthright farmer is going to be able to describe all this to you, and should be willing to. Processing and handling, slaughtering, all that kind of stuff. You can ask them, like, what does that look like? Does that happen on the farm? Do they load them and send them somewhere else? Do you, is it a 30-minute ride or is it a 5-hour long ride? Because it can be very stressful for the animals to be transported, especially if they've never been moved before. There's a lot of regulatory stuff about, what you can do at home and sell, and it's a whole mess, and I can't even recall it all accurately right now. But generally speaking, people try to process as close to the farm as they possibly can. Depending upon what kind of market they want to sell to, it may need to be USDA inspected. There's also these custom options and so forth. But they should be able to talk. Like I said, they should be able to talk to you about that. And then, how is freshness maintained? Most beef is hung for a certain amount of time before it is packaged, before it is usually vacuum packed and placed in a freezer. So let's talk about freezers for a minute. for instance, when I harvest a sheep on the farm and it stays on the farm because it's part of the, it's the meat that we get to retain and we don't have to send to market. We process the sheep in a day, make all of our cuts, vacuum pack it, put it in the freezer. It gets thawed one time before it gets cooked. Conventional food may have been frozen and thawed several times before it makes it to that grocery store shelf. And so every time you've got that temperature variation, same with milk. That's why milk is pasteurized the way it is, because you just keep increasing your likelihood of some kind of bacterial thing taken off. I cannot think of anywhere where you can buy meat that hasn't been frozen at least once. You pretty much have to. Even on the local level, it's just it's too hard to keep it at a refrigerated temperature. Most people don't have the room. Freezers are relatively inexpensive. We can buy a bunch of freezers. We can plug them in and throw some. There's technology these days you can use to monitor the temperature range of your freezer and get like a Wi-Fi alert over your phone if something's out of spec. So frozen meat is not an issue to me. I cannot tell any difference. I think one time we ate some lamb, I'm crazy, so I'll eat the thing that I harvested that very day. Most people are like, oh, I can't even stand to think about it. We did a roast like the evening after we did a harvest in the morning, and it was good. It was very good. So, and then finally, transparency and values. Question number 9 I've got here. This is going to be a big one. You will be able to tell somebody who is full of it or is talking canned talking points if you ask them, what does a typical day on your farm look like? I'll tell you what mine looks like real quick. How am I doing on time, guys? I don't have my clock showing. Cool. Okay. So I want to leave about 15 minutes to chat and Q&A. I wake up when I wake up, fortunately, because I don't have an alarm for most mornings, but I usually wake up with the sun. Take the dog out, let the chickens out, give them their food, which is a mix of usually whatever garden scraps are going on and a little bit of scratch feed and a little bit of protein pellet. Feed the rabbits. They get a little bit of protein pellet, and then later in the day they get, again, garden weeds and that sort of thing. Top off everybody's water. Add new bedding to the rabbits and the chickens, and they're in one system. They're like in a coop run system, all in one footprint, which makes it pretty convenient. And then I head down and make sure the sheep are behaving themselves, make sure everybody's accounted for, make sure the fence is fine, top off their water, check on anything that looks out of sorts. Most of the time everything's cool. This time of year, kind of see how they're doing on hay, if I need to plan to bring them a new hay that day or not. And then I get on with my day. And then I repeat all that around 3 p.m., 4 p.m., whenever I get back if I've been away on a job. Some days are more complicated. Some days the sheep are out. Some days they're dying. Some days, a bunny doesn't look good. Different things happen. But after the care of myself, my wife, and my dog, those animals are next in line. Well, I should say family because we all live there together. But those animals are foremost in my mind. That is my duty, and I am happy to do it. So they should be able to talk about that. And finally, are customers welcome to visit their farm, or can I see photos and videos of your operation? Like I said, most of us are proud of what we do, and we want to share it, and we don't want to hide anything. The only thing that kind of because some people are so ignorant, and I mean that in a kind way, they are disconnected with how food production works these days. They'll see that my chickens are in this corral that I've built, and they're like, oh, they're confined. They will be dead in 5 minutes if they're not in that corral, because there are hawks everywhere, and owls and coyotes and fox. And if I want my chickens to stay alive and happy and not be thinking they're going to die every 5 minutes, they have to be in that corral, because I've tried everything else, and I have the dead bird log to show it, unfortunately. So come to these conversations with an open mind. I'm folks like you guys that I'm used to talking to, that's never been an issue. But some people, because I've been at some farmers markets, not as a person there to sell it at the table, but to walk around and kind of like spy. And I have seen some of my local farmer friends endure absolute interrogation techniques from people, most of them who weren't from here. So there's also how we do things in the South. So take that into account as well, right? So, yeah, they should want to have this conversation or be able to point you to somebody who represents the farm and knows these details as well. Marcy, you want to talk about what you do?
Well, I'll be a farmer advocate for a minute. I came from a commercial dairy farm, okay? But not the kind of farm you want to buy from. So when you're talking to farmers, the way we became a generative literally by people having this conversation, but not but asking the whys, make me think. You know, they're like, why do you do that? And I'm like, because it's the way we've always done it. So when you talk to farmers, not all of them have a clue that what they're doing can be done different. And they may not have that clue when you're done with them, but if enough people ask the why, not just, well, you're doing it wrong, you know, but why are you doing that? Non-GMO, we had the non-GMO rally, the really big first one they had here, and they messed up and invited me to speak. And it was the biggest crowd I'd spoke to. And my thing though was, I'm completely against GMOs, period, I'm against them. But when you're a farmer in East Tennessee, if you're going to refuse at the time, in, I don't know, what was that, not 2000 or before, I don't know what year it was, if you're going to refuse to eat from them at the time, our farmers are going to have a problem because I couldn't get non-GMO feed. I was milking 130 cows. I couldn't get non-GMO feed. It wasn't here. We didn't have Tucker Mill, and we have Tucker Mill now, but we still don't have a dairy mix. And dairy cows require different things. So without people asking me these things and then giving me time to adjust those things, it would have never changed. So if you find a farmer you like and they don't check all your boxes, there are farmers now everywhere that will check all your boxes. But if they don't and you like them, ask them what they're willing to change. I had people pay me good money to keep me in business while I made changes. And every time I got to where I thought I was great, they handed me something else. Literally, they handed me a book and be like, read this book. Now and so if you find a farmer willing, and that's part of what we do at Knox Farms Families. So I run Knox Farms Families. We are a collaborate of farmers. Our goal was to stop everyone from competing. We can't grow feed all in Knoxville if we collaborate, much less than if we compete. So our goal is to pull everybody together and start collaborating instead of competing. And then to open up conversations like Carrie's saying I just want to add in that conversation, be gentle with your farmers. If they are not doing these things, give them the whys, give them something to think about. Let them know that if they want to try these things, you'll support them. Some of them aren't going to try it. They're not your farmer. But some of them just don't know. And in Tennessee, if you ask a farmer, are you grass-fed? They all are. They don't know that you're looking for grass-fed and finished. They don't know. Their stuff's on grass year-round. Most of them don't have big barns to put stuff in. So you got to get with specific questions like Carrie's saying, and get pretty specific because they're not lying to you. It's just what we've been taught here generationally by UT. The main ag source here is the horriblest information in the world.
Yeah.
They're right next door.
Are they? Don't go there.
Extension is right next door.
And I mean, they're not bad. It's just what they know. So you just have the conversations and be gentle with them. And if they're willing to talk to you, great. If they're not willing to talk to you, then, I mean, I would have went under in 08 during the dairy crash if all our homeschools moms weren't saying, we need milk. And I was like, it's not legal. They didn't care. And at the time I didn't either. I was broke. But they gave me time to find non-GMO feed. And they gave me time to find other stuff. I mean, they slowly worked me. And our farm store, we do the same thing. We have about 30 farmers that pull together there. And we will break our standards. Our standards are no vaccines, no hormones, no antibiotics, and everything's unpastured, and then we label to the lowest standard of feed. But if we have a farmer that shows up at a farmer meeting and says, our goal is also to make our farmers a living. They should not be struggling to pay their bills. Their children should want to farm after them. So we're not cheap. We need our farmers making a living while they're not being subsidized. And so farmers will show up asking about prices and just how we work, and if they want to do what we're doing, we start them where they're at. So you'll see these refrigerators that say, right now, we've got some sausage that's $5.50 a pound, not $8.50 a pound. It's because they're working on getting there. And so there'll be big signs, you know, that this isn't our normal, that until our guys get to where they're going, we're gonna support them getting there. And then you'll have more regenerative farmers, the more you support getting there.
I would rather have small family farms that are somewhat still conventional than another flippin' subdivision development. If there's anything that burns my biscuits around here is seeing all of our farmland turn into subdivisions. Not to hate on you guys who live in subdivisions, we all gotta live somewhere. But I field weekly phone calls, texts, and mailings for people trying to buy our property out from under us. And don't worry, we're not going anywhere. But so what Marcy's saying, you know, if you meet somebody and maybe you click with them real good and maybe their practices aren't 100% where you would like them to be as a consumer, just get to know them and treat them like a friend.
They're
And
willing to have the
they
conversation.
are willing to have
the
it.
conversation.
And it's becoming, as these terms become more common and kind of on the national level, and with the amount of homesteading that has just kind of exploded post-COVID, more and more people are becoming aware of this. This is not so niche anymore.
No one's perfect. You have
No.
things die. You have times you have to do things we don't want to do. We put it down or treat it with something we don't want to treat or whatever. You've got to, things have to work. So you have to ask. That's why a lot of people like Carrie said, you don't want regulatory. And one thing, when you're asking about visiting a farm, if you're asking milk farmers, come watch them milk and they tell you no, do not get mad at them. Some of them will let you, but cows are picky. They like routine and they get ticked when new people are in their space. And your milk sucks if it's got a hoof in the middle of the bucket. That's why they want to pasteurize it, because you
Yep.
got to keep it clean.
Yep.
So there are some cases, if they don't want you on the farm, I mean, I got some people that don't want you on the farm, and they're great farmers. So you need to ask why, and then decide if you want to do that or go somewhere more transparent. But I would sometimes let people in my milk barn, but it was rare. If you let people in your milk barn, you can plan on an extra couple of hours dumping the milk, and it's a pain. So there are times for them to tell you no.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily have a bunch of strangers up when I've got lambs coming out all over the place because it can kind of stress the mamas out, you know. So,
Winter,
yeah.
you're talking about putting stuff up in the winter, that's really, people at that point, you kind of swap and look at animal health only, now they're locked up. But it is excellent grass practice, if you're looking at soil health, getting your animals off the soil in the winter while it's dormant is a very good soil practice.
Yeah. So that's why ours get kind of put on the worst soil of the farm, so that I can pile it with lots of hay and lots of biomass and lots of manure, and then kind of keep them moving more slowly. And every time I've done that, every winter we've done it now, that field comes back better and better and better. But eventually, I'm not gonna have a place to do that. So maybe by then I'll have a barn.
But I mean, still, it's not a bad practice, you have to let that field rest extra.
Yep.
Because it's not gonna bounce back up like, I've never had a big farm here.
Have you lost any sheep to cold?
Not maybe. We had a ram lamb die a couple of nights ago, and he was cold, but I'm not certain that he didn't also have maybe pneumonia or something. But he was very slow to gain weight. I also kind of suspect that mom had very poor milk production, so I'm already kind of thinking she's not going to get bred again.
Your sheep
So-
is dry, it should be good and cold.
I had 20 years ago, I got into goats. I've had probably 40 head of goats in the past, and I switched from goats to sheep. I had an old farmer tell me, he sold me the goats, but he said, you'd be better off with sheep. I should have listened to him then. He said, a goat can have, it can get chilled, a kid can get chilled and die. A sheep, you can have it in the snow, and that thing will be frolicking around in the snow.
Yeah.
And this we got about 6 inches down there in this little storm we had. And true to form, storm, I told my girlfriend, I said, these sheep are about to bust, they're gonna wait till it's bad weather. And they love, I don't know why they love having them in bad weather, but they
Because
do.
predators don't bother.
Well, that was my guess.
Yep.
I was glad.
Yeah, I think we had 5 born during that
Yeah,
combo
and
ice
I
snow
had
stuff,
no
and
problems.
they're all fine.
And I've got a little building for them to get in, but oftentimes I've found that the mothers will have them away, cause like I said, I've got wooded area and pasture in the same fence and a barn. And, she went off into the woods because right now it's coyote mating season. They're not as predatory. They're just chasing each other when you hear them yipping now, and we're covered with coyotes. And I was a little concerned about that. But the herd's over here, and mom's over here in the woods in a hiding spot.
Mhm.
And for me, there's just no question. I don't. The only benefit I can see to goats to sheep was goats will climb higher up on the tree
Yeah.
to forage, so
Yep.
you'll have a cleaner woods. Whereas your sheep are more on the grazer side
Yeah.
than foraging. But
I've been a big fan of the clearing work that these sheep do because I've used them to clear
yeah,
and open up a lot of really brushy areas. Yeah, these Katahdins, they'll just drop a lamb right there by the hay roll with everybody just chilling. They'll just be bloop right there on the ground,
yeah.
on with their day. So, yeah, and that little ram lamb that went down was on the warmest day we've had.
And
It
I'll
was
tell you about
60
something else,
degrees.
too. You may know or may not, but the red-tailed hawk migrates through here starting in January,
Mhm.
February for mating season. And I'm not joking. The red-tailed hawks will stand probably this tall, almost 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And I know my neighbor lost a baby goat to a red-tailed hawk last year.
Yeah.
And how do you handle that?
So we've got a guardian donkey with ours. I don't know how her name's Primrose. I don't know if Primrose would recognize a bird as a problem. They're more of like canine. I really don't think she would. We've got this great horned owl that lives up there, and a few nights ago I went down to check on him as the sun was going down, and he was up in this dead locust just looking down at everybody. And I walked all the way to that tree, and I was like, go. Like, I can't do anything. I'm not going to do anything about you. Nothing violent, of course. They're not going to do that. But I was like, don't, because I had babies everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, they always, everywhere they have, wherever these sheep are bedded in the wintertime, because they do continue to move around pasture, they always have at least the cover of some pretty large cedar trees.
Does anyone have goats in here?
I used to.
Yeah, so what I found too was that goat kids will stray further away from their mother, but I bet your lambs stay.
Everybody
against
stays
the
real
belly,
tight.
And that hawk has to have
Yeah.
a clean swoop on both sides.
Yep.
And I think that's most likely why I haven't lost any.
Yeah.
To red tail.
Your donkey will not help. Donkeys
No.
are not predatory.
She's not looking
She
up.
just hates dogs.
Yeah.
My
She's more of a
Pyrenees
deterrent.
Would raise
Well,
Canis.
Pyrenees is a predatory animal.
Yeah, I know, but
Everybody,
I
we
never
look
thought
at
about
us-
them looking up.
We look at donkeys as predatory animals because they don't really protect. They are protection,
Mhm.
but they don't protect. They just don't like the same thing that like
Yeah.
animals.
It's kind of like having a big beefy guy as like as a bouncer at a bar, but doesn't actually know how to fight. That's kind of what Donkey does. So, but she's a good girl and we love her. So, but yeah, I mean that's just part of it. It's part of it is how much risk do you want to take on. Any questions I can answer for you guys about some of the obtaining your foods and have you had any experiences, any conversations you've had with farmers that was revealing to you or concerning or anything of the above, or is this kind of brand new info?
Do y'all have a Mennonite community up here, Randolph?
There's one down in Etowah. Actually, they're all over. I don't know exactly where, but they're all
Etowah,
over.
I've
Yeah.
got one in Tellico Plains.
Yeah.
I found them to be. I started trading with them 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And if I've got a question on, and you talk about ethical harvesting, and
Yeah.
ethical
Yeah.
treatment, they're really a good source.
What community do you say?
Well,
Mennonite.
so
Mennonite.
I have to clarify. Everybody calls them the Mennonite community, but they're neither Mennonite nor Amish. They're kind of a composite that moved down, and I can get into details. It doesn't matter. They're great people, but they're mostly from the old order Mennonites in Kentucky that came down here. But I've traded sheep with them, and they've got a deal they started this year to where they don't have refrigeration or freezer, so, they will slaughter chickens on, I think it's a Friday, and you can sign up for an appointment, and then you come in, tell them how many, I want 3 chickens.
Mhm.
And you come in and pick them up, and they're still warm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You gotta go take them home and put
Yeah.
them in the freezer.
Crossville Acres will do that too.
Okay.
She doesn't freeze her chickens before she.
And they do
cooks.
milk shares as well. You have to buy a part of the cow. It's a legal way to do it, I think. You may, I don't know, I don't do it, but,
I've done that.
yeah.
I went and get my milk every week.
Yep.
The milk lady, I think, is that her name, that's got the wagon that
Yeah.
comes around? So we've got that a couple of times, and that seems to be really good.
If you
Are
need
you-
a
are
milk
you-
list, we hold a
Several
whole milk
years.
list for all the providers in the
Okay.
area.
Okay, she comes to and she's got days that she goes to each town, so she comes down to us, which is
She's
pretty
at
cool.
Farragut on Saturday, and she's at Hardin Valley on Thursday.
Really good.
Can you guys give your website, the two of you, your websites?
I don't have one,
Okay,
but I have a card and I have a Facebook page. I don't have time for one.
can I get one?